Hello there, Shortcuts. Stephen here with the first list for the price list that will go out this Wednesday, the 11th of June at 9 p.m. I considered not doing a list because the State of Origin is on, but then I thought, I've committed to this time slot, I'm going to keep to it. For those of you who aren't in Australia, the State of Origin, one of the premier sporting events in New South Wales and Queensland, where a lot of my members are based. So I know a lot of you will be watching the game, but you can catch up with the price list soon afterwards. This will be a primarily jazz and soul price list. This is a collection of records that I've been pulling together for my record fair, which is in 3 weeks' time. And I thought I'd let you guys have a look at it first. If you are not on the price list but would like to be, drop me an email, shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com. We'll soon be at our 450th member. All right. So I always like to pick a record to start with and do a little bit of a deeper dive. And this week, it is this record. I checked, first time I've had this in about 3 years. It is Blue Train by the mighty John Coltrane. This record is in marvelous condition. For those of you who are interested, it is the BLP 1577 press, which I think is early 70s Japanese, but I will confirm before Wednesday evening. Lee Morgan on trumpet, Curtis Fuller on trombone, John Coltrane on sax, Kenny Drew on piano, Paul Chambers on bass, and Philly Joe Jones on drums. Probably, yeah, it's got to be the greatest lineup, I think, in the history of Blue Note. And part of that is because it's the only Blue Note record that John Coltrane top and tailed. John Coltrane's got his name at the top. Consider this North Carolina saxophonist had come through Miles Davis's kind of classic, legendary quintet. And by the time 1957 rolled around, he already had a reputation, and as a perfectionist, but as a deeply thoughtful and considerate and talented musician. And he forged his own path, as you know, moving on to impulse and driving a style of jazz that's almost uniquely his. It's pretty incredible. But here it is still hard bop, and that is why in many ways it's considered the most accessible John Coltrane album. I think Ballads is probably even more accessible, but this is great. I really like Ole as well. I really like, as you know, John Coltrane plays the blues. Blue Train is right up there. His only record as a leader on Blue Note, and really I think is a turning point to his journey to jazz immortality. It's quite a structured record. What's really interesting about this record is that every song has its own feel. So Blue Train, Moment's Notice, Locomotion, I'm Old Fashioned, Lazy Bird, each one is quite different. And you can see very clearly, pretty early on, what Coltrane's aiming for with each. And because he has such a crack ensemble of musicians, the interplay is just wonderful. And part of the reason I like this record so much is in the name, Blue. Whilst it plays on Blue Note and that, wonderful kind of smoky feel, it also, to me, is a play on the fact that a lot of the songs here are planted in the blues. So they're super melodic, and almost kind of traditional sounding, but still really harmonic. Moment's Notice, for example, is quite propulsive and kind of darts forward. I'm Old Fashioned is kind of sensitive and really touching. So I don't know. If you don't know this record, it's well worth diving into. It's one that you can come back to years and years and years, and you'll take something out of it every time. Recorded by Rudy Van Gelder, as you might imagine, but the listening notes by Robert Levin in the back are pretty wonderful as well. And this features the inner, as you would expect. Just a beautiful, beautiful record. Not my favorite Blue Note record. I think that my favorite Blue Note record is about to come, but or certainly right up there. But Blue Train is wonderful. If I, but seriously, don't forget Lee Morgan, 1957. He was on Moanin', Art Blakey's on Blue Train, and I think he still hadn't turned 20. It's pretty crazy. This record is up there with Moanin' in my personal favourite, Blue Note. There's a lot of Blue Note in tonight's list. This has been a lead-off record before. It is Midnight Blue, another record with blue in the title, by Kenny Burrell, Stanley Turrentine, Kenny Burrell, Major Holly, Bill English, Ray Barretto on conga. And that Ray Barretto conga groove is what sets these types of guitar records and this kind of era of Blue Note jazz sets it aside. It's really tasteful, it's really groovy, it adds just another ingredient, another texture, which I really, really like. Chitlin's Con Carne, the opening track, is really sultry, kind of drenched in soul, but so groovy as well. The title track is pretty amazing. Saturday Night Blues is a kind of a more of a sizzling vibe. It's got a more energetic, direct thing. This really does dive into the blues even more than Blue Train does, which I think is part of the reason why so many listeners treasure this record. It is not unusual for me to meet a Shortcuts member. We'll talk about our favorite blues album, and that person will say it's Midnight Blue, Kenny Burrell. It's a fantastic record, and not the only Kenny Burrell in this list. It's so velvety and beautiful. Give it a listen if you don't know it. All right, I've got some soundtracks. I think this might be the only soundtrack, but what a soundtrack it is. This is the Japanese 2LP version of Labi Schifrin's soundtrack to Enter the Dragon, The Gatefold. Now, this is 1973. By this point, Labi Schifrin had already scored big with the theme to Mission Impossible. He'd already become one of the most famous Argentinians in the world. But this series of records, and in particularly this record, I suppose it sealed his immortality. You've got a guy in Labi Schifrin who was trained in both classical and jazz, but what comes across in this particular soundtrack is the playfulness and the soul and funk side of it. You can hear the Asian motifs, the tension in that the whole way through, but this 2LP Japanese version expands on the traditional track list. So there are more excerpts of kind of lush orchestration and little drum grooves, but also some dialogue that sits in and it plays much more like a true soundtrack, I think, than the Western version. If you'll like this stuff and the kind of Labi Schifrin's crescendos and playfulness, this record really is a statement piece. Super heavy, typically great Japanese package. I remember reading quite a while back, I read a biography of Bruce Lee, so I'm talking a while back, I'm talking 15, 20 years ago. But I do remember that, maybe someone can confirm this or not, but that Bruce Lee was the Schifrin fan. So Lalo Schifrin. Lalo Schifrin had done the score to Cool Hand Luke, which I think was one of Bruce Lee's favorites. But if someone can correct me, that'd be fantastic. And sorry for the Labbies, it's Lalo, as you know. Now, we mentioned the Miles Davis famous quintets earlier. So here's a version of Cooking. This is Cooking with the Miles Davis Quintet. Miles, John Coltrane, Red Garland, Paul Chambers, and Philly Joe Jones. Some of those musicians went on to play in Blue Train, as you know. This is one of those records that Miles released with his band in a very short period of time. Cooking, steaming, walking, working, and one other that skips my mind. All cut from a very, very similar cloth. But this band is one of the most iconic for all sorts of reasons. This is one of the more kind of warm, relaxed, cohesive records, considering it was pretty much recorded off the cuff and kind of smacked out. You know, they didn't really focus on it. It's got some classics, though, songs that have lived through the years. My Funny Valentine probably being the most famous. Tune Up When the Lights Are Low. You can really hear the band playing off each other. I think that considering where Miles was, this run of 5 little gems that he recorded at pretty much the same time is an absolute statement of his genius. Relaxing, working, steaming. I think all of them were done in either 1 or 2 sessions, which is pretty crazy. You do hear Miles leaning into his mute on this as well, which I know Wayne from a group that I'm on will not be happy with, but it's a lovely record. You know, a lot of these folks coming through were making these incredible records being super young. So, you know, Lee Morgan was 19, John Coltrane was an old man, Miles Davis was an old man. And here's another jazz musician whose fingerprints were all over that era. This is one that is pretty special. This is Maiden Voyage. As you know, an absolute shortcuts royalty record at this point. I think about 55 of you have this record now. But this is the first time I've ever had a Blue Note white label promo. Look at that. Incredible. Never seen it before. It's the... Now, which version is this? Because it's not written on the label. LNJ 80077. I don't know. I'll have to look it up. But, you know, Maiden Voyage. He was only 24 when he made this. Freddie Hubbard is amazing on this record. Obviously, Herbie Hancock on piano. The legendary Anthony Williams, who beat Tony Williams on drums. I saw Herbie Hancock in concert last year. He still has it. But his classical training and his forward-thinking jazz chops led to the 70s and led to Headhunters and, you know, Thrust and Manchild is some of my all-time favorite records, but these acoustic jazz records rooted in the blues and classical melody are pretty genius. And a white label promo. And this one, I think it might be the first time I've ever had this. This is Herbie Hancock's debut album as a band leader. This is taken off 1962. Maiden Voyage was either 64 or 65. So if he was 24 when he made Maiden Voyage, he's 21 years of age when he made this. Dexter Gordon, Herbie Hancock, Butch Warren, Billy Higgins, Freddie Hubbard being the constant. This is, I'm just going to point this out, this is the appearance of Watermelon Man. Look at that. Became truly an all-time classic. Recovered again on his funk jazz. And this is on this unusual Blue Note label, which I think, and here's the inner, which is really cool. Look at that Blue Note. I suspect this is an early US version. I'll have to do my research and figure out that equation. But taken off, still adventurous, still cool. Really melodic though. This is, and the solos between Herbie, Dexter Gordon, and Freddie Hubbard are up there with Maiden Voyage. I think it's more accessible than Maiden Voyage. I think it's an easier in than Maiden Voyage. It's really swings. It's really confident. My wife even likes this one. I think it's a very, very strong kind of blue note sound. Now, this is the first Impulse record, but what a record this is. I told you this is a big jazz list. This is... pretty sure this is also a US press. I'm going to have to figure out. It might be a US first press. This is Max Roach Percussion Bittersweet on US Impulse hard cardboard early press. I'm gonna, as I said, I have to figure out what exactly we've got here because I only just opened the box. What do I know? Max Roach turned up on one of my own vinyl nights. I invite some friends around here and we play vinyl. And Max Roach turned up, maybe not last vinyl night, maybe the one before, in a record. I have a funny feeling, is I've only brought it, it may have been called Preach, but it was a statement. And Ivan explained to me that Max Roach had a political element to his music as well as being kind of an architect of bebop and one of the most revered drummers of his time. This is in a similar era to Taken Off, maybe just the year before. I think this is 61, Taken Off is 62. So you're already in that 60s era where jazz is transforming and becoming, I suppose, more modern. And that Afro-Cuban rhythm coming in, adding to the protest element is where this record lives. So it features Abby Lincoln, incredible vocalist, Booker Little, a young Mal Waldron as well. It's a really, really fun record. Garvey's Ghost, I think, is probably the biggest hit off this, or certainly the one with the biggest legacy. And it has and became a tribute and a thundering tribute at that to Black Pride. So there's a record that tackles hypocrisy, and I think it's still very, very valid right now. I think this is S8. I'm gonna have to research. I think this is a very early US press, but we'll figure it out. We also have some soul music. This is A Taste of Honey. Just says exactly what it is on the tin, and features Boogie Oogie Oogie, which is a terrible name for what is a killer tune. Really, really fun. Japanese first press with Obi. I'm sure, I know there are some Taste of Honey fans out there, so it's nice to see that turn up in the box. Keeping in that frame of mellow, soulful music, and I know there are a lot of fans of this guy out here. I've never had this before. This is... it's got some special things. This is Quincy Jones, and it's called Mellow Madness. Now, this is 1975. It features musicians Wawa Johnson on guitar, Toots Thielemans also on guitar, Dave Grusin on keyboards, Quincy Jones plays trumpet, trombone, saxophone, bass harmonica, drums, Harvey Mason, as you might expect, congas and synthesizers, all sorts of people. Minnie Riperton is on backing vocals. So this is the recording debut of the Brothers Johnson, who George Johnson and Wawa Watson, who went on to become their own kind of funk royalty, I suppose it's the only way to describe it. It's breezy, it's fun, it's funky. It also features this. Let me just unfold it. I don't think this has been unfolded too many times. You all know I love a good poster. I haven't seen this one myself. I'll be seeing it for the first time, just like all of you. Oh, wow. Oh, interesting. So there's Quincy from the cover, but there's a perforated line here, and that looks like a bouncing naked Quincy Jones from When He Was a Baby. I'm going to have to look up what that is all about. Anyway, Mellow Madness, Quincy Jones, the magnificent Quincy Jones. Really well reviewed, that one was as well. Now, here is a couple more jazz and one more soul to go. This is the Three Sounds. So you can see Gene Harrison piano, Andrew Simpkins on bass, Bill Dowdy on drums. I would describe these guys as more soul jazz. Really accessible, really melodic. They built up quite a following with really cool groove-based and swing tunes through their career in Blue Note. Very listenable, really sold well, really warm, relaxed, mixtures of standards and original songs. Really, really fun. And this is a bit of a sleeper hit of theirs. Some others are more highly regarded, but this is, yeah, it's excellent. And yeah, really, really fun band. And kind of, you can hear that they're all about playing live. You can hear the live playing. You can imagine these guys playing 3 or 4 sets a night and just, you know, finishing their last set at midnight and then heading to the studio to record this. It's really lovely. The Three Sounds, it's called Up. Now, I did mention Kenny Burrell. I didn't want to kind of put this one up front when we had Midnight Blue, but this is wonderful. This is introducing Kenny Burrell, the guitarist's first ever session as a leader, recorded in 1956 with Tommy Flanagan, Paul Chambers, Kenny Clark, and Candido on drum. Now you will notice it's still in the shrink wrap and it's still got the kind of hype sticker / OB. It's got a little yellow thing. I'm going to have to go to Google Translate and see what that actually says. It is in magnificent condition. And this is a record that kind of announced him as a leader, as someone to watch, leading, of course, to the all-time classic that is Midnight Blue. Now, this one's got a few more standards in it. This time, The Dream's on Me, but not for me. But they're really elegant, really mature, really melodic. It's a little bit more intimate than Midnight Blue, maybe not quite so bluesy, but his jazz tone has and will go down in history and remains this, you know, when you look at the reviews of the Tone Poets and Classic series that Blue Note have released over the last few years, you'll often see people just raving just about Kenny Burrell in general. He's just, you know, revered in Japan, and they really work those kind of high fidelity Toshiba pressings with Blue Note. They're you know, they love them, and it really does good. Now I've got a really cool record to finish. I love this. I have a copy of this on my own shelf, and I've had it for a while, and I've never been able to get another copy until now. It is this Ike and Tina Turner live in Paris. Look at those photos. Amazing. Grumbling, you got me running. Everyday people come together. Proud Mary, honky tonk woman, respect. It's just magnificent. Recorded live at the Olympia Theatre in Paris, January 30th, 1971. Double LP. Really energetic and sassy. It's just, you know, I think the sleeve just says it all. It's just son of a preacher man as well. Oh my gosh. What a record. I think, you know, Ike and Tina Turner, controversial because of the behaviour of Ike, and you cannot excuse how he treated Tina Turner, and it's amazing that she went on to have a legendary career, and he really didn't. But that doesn't take away from these live performances about this band were really, really something. Ike and Tina and the Ikeettes, all handmade costumes, and a really nice image of Tina at the back. Brilliant. Olympia in 1971. There you have it. A jazz-infused list. I think every record on there is wonderful. I really do. I yeah, I love this list. So I know jazz isn't maybe as popular as some of the other genres that Shortcuts focuses on, but I really think this is great. So if you don't know some of these, give them a listen. If you would like to be on the price list, drop me an email, shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com. I will respond immediately. That's shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com. Thank you. Bye.